What would you do if you had the power to heal others, but not the one you loved the most? For Alicia Wallace, 9 years have passed stuck in a mental ward for reasons that shouldn't have happened. Barely holding on to reality from the medicine they feed her, it's during a prison transfer she is a part of that everyone is struck with madness, and they start killing each other, causing the bus to crash. It's here that you begin, and quickly find yourself waking up in an unknown mansion. The only things you can be certain of are fear and confusion, mystery and intrigue, them and us. At game start, you have the option of picking over-the-shoulder camera or fixed camera perspectives. I opted to go for fixed camera because, why wouldn't I? I did try the third-person mode to see what the differences are, and it feels like two completely different games. Third-person controls is similar to the newer Resident Evil games. You can move while shooting and have a button dedicated to the knife. Aiming for longer periods of time can increase accuracy and damage. It feels like a nice action game that can be very frantic and fast. Fixed camera plays akin to what you would expect from an older horror game. You move around with tank controls and have to focus on positioning yourself in a way that will allow you to dodge around zombies or fight effectively. Everything handles very well, and if you're familiar with this style of play, you'll be right at home. Even the menus look how you would expect. You can't move while shooting in this mode, and your knife has to be equipped manually, making it way harder to use it effectively. Items can be dropped on the ground, and thankfully, your map will mark these items for later pickup, or you can transfer them to yourself via the special item box you get later. Enemies are plentiful and aggressive. It starts simple with your slow shambling zombie types, but quickly ramps up with dogs, spectral creatures, and other surprises along the way to keep you on your toes. Combat should be a last resort, at least in fixed perspective. In third person, you can just knife dance on fools. Here though, you need to be mindful of how and when you use your ammo. Zombies will typically take somewhere between 7 and 10 shots, so you'll quickly burn through bullets trying to clear a path to some of these areas. You also have access to several other weapons, with my favorite being the shotgun, because if you aim it just right, you'll get that satisfying head pop which looks hilariously cheap. I'd like to see heads blow up like a watermelon, but hey, that's just me. Key hunting and puzzle solving is the name of the game. This map is pretty huge, and you'll spend a lot of time running from place to place trying to figure out what to do next. Some of the areas are so large, in fact, that while doing a particular sequence of events, I was away from the main area for so long that I forgot what I was even trying to do in the first place. There's a lot of locked doors, especially in the beginning, and a bunch of different keys to find. There's a lot of trial and error on testing where you can and cannot go. Some of the puzzles are pretty fun to figure out though, and there's a few shots of nostalgia sprinkled around as a nod to some of the game's influences. The mood on display is astounding. It's dark and heavy with a big focus on lighting. The sound helps to enhance things as you hear the wind howling or moans in the night. The sound of leaky pipes mixes with light piano notes and a general sense of unease to really sell how dreary this place is. Every area is ripe with small effects that makes them seem that much more alive. Leaves fall in the wind, the fog is thick and foreboding, clocks tick loudly and dust hangs in the air as fireflies dance around lanterns. It's really a feat for the eyes to see how detailed some of these areas are. There's even this TV in some rooms that can affect how the game looks by changing it from normal to pixelated, and even black and white if you want to go super old school. Item management is strongly encouraged in this game. You collect a lot of stuff and start with a very limited inventory. You can expand this further as you progress, but even later in the game you'll very regularly be carrying multiple quest items at any given time. Being a former medic, Alicia will make use of bandages and ointments as well as first aid kits to heal herself. Saving is done by placing records on gramophones, and these come in fairly limited supplies, so even saving effectively is encouraged, which really makes you think about how much progress you'll lose if you die. What's kind of neat is that you'll get a classical tune depending on which record you use, so you can change things up as you go. I really like the save theme that plays before you put a record in, but sadly I don't think you can keep it. Things can be pretty tough sometimes too. I constantly found myself in low health because of how plentiful the enemies can be. The game does a good job of setting up areas where you need to think rationally about how to take out the threat ahead of you. Oftentimes you'll have to make quick decisions on whether or not you want to fight or try and dodge around them. You can get yourself into some sticky situations if you aren't fast enough or if you made a bad decision. Health and ammo are pretty limited for the most part, so you'll need to take into consideration what the best course of action is. Some of the more advanced enemies you'll fight are almost like mini-bosses in their own right and can definitely show you a bad time. Some of these are needed for progression too, so if you're not in good shape, fighting 3 hard enemies in one room can bring you straight to the loading screen. While I wasn't entirely sold on the story and the way things play out, I can't help but be absorbed into the feeling this game gives off. Oftentimes I was just taking in the environments and enjoying the ambience. There are, however, a lot of frustrating moments that lead to death, and you can find yourself backtracking long distances to try and find where to go next. Even when my dodging was on point, I would still just get into situations where I was running around in low health, trying to find that one thing that does the thing so I can go do the other thing. You get funneled into going certain places, and it's really unfortunate when you go up an elevator only to realize you can't go back until you take the long way around, and that area is now blocked off until you fulfill certain requirements. I had a lot of fun with this one though. I'd like to go back sometime and try it again in third person, because from what I played it seemed like you can't go wrong no matter which way you choose to play it. Everything handles solidly, and I rarely felt that things were cheap so much as I was just underprepared. I feel as though the areas might be a little bit too big though, with too many doors to remember, especially since you find yourself scouring over large maps to find one door that you glanced at 3 hours ago. This is a pretty long game, and I'd recommend it in smaller sessions. There's a lot of fun to be had and a fair amount of replay value though, so give this one a shot for sure.